So the radiations which are associated by electric and magnetic field are called as your electromagnetic waves. So what is frequency? It is the number of waves passing through a point in 1 second. These electromagnetic waves do not require any medium to propagate. They can propagate in vacuum as well. So your radio waves will be having the highest wavelength and the least frequency. Atoms will emit radiations only in discrete quantities and not in continuous manner, and these discrete quantities were called as your quanta or photons. Hello everyone, this is Ambali Unnikrishnan from the Department of Chemistry, Vidhyaashram School of Excellence, Mysore. So today we are back with session 3 of your chapter Structure of Atom. Yes, so in last class, we discussed about the atomic models. Yes, we discussed in detail about Thomson's model of atom. Yes, and then we discussed about the Rutherford's alpha scattering experiment, which led to the discovery of Rutherford's atomic model. Yes, we studied about the representation of element, how you can represent an element. Then we studied about isotopes and isobars. Right. So in today's session, we will be discussing about the developments leading to the Bohr model of atom, right? Then electromagnetic spectrum, electromagnetic waves and its characteristics, particle nature of matter, which is the Planck's quantum theory, and then photoelectric effect and black body radiation, right? So let's begin with the first topic, that is the developments leading to the Bohr model of atom. So till here we discussed about the Thomson model of atom and Rutherford's model of atom. So we studied that there are few limitations for it. Yes, so the next model which was proposed was by Bohr, which is the Bohr model of atom. So before moving on to the Bohr model of atom, so before understanding Bohr model of atom, you need to know about what all developments led to the discovery of this Bohr model of atom. So majorly there are two developments that led to the Bohr model of atom. So the first one is dual nature of electromagnetic spectra, which means that radiation possesses both wave-like and particle-like properties. Yes, dual properties, that is dual nature of electromagnetic spectra. Yes, it shows wave nature as well as particle nature. So this was one major leading. Then the next one is experimental results regarding atomic spectra. So these two factors or these two developments we will be discussing in this chapter. So the first one is the dual nature of electromagnetic spectra, that is particle and wave nature. Yes, and the second one is the results regarding atomic spectra. So we'll begin with the wave-like properties of your electromagnetic spectra. Yes. Now the dual nature of electromagnetic radiation, as I said, there will be wave nature and particle nature. Under wave nature, we'll be studying about electromagnetic spectrum, and particle nature, we'll be studying about these two phenomena, that is black body radiation and photoelectric effect. Yes, so first let's begin with the electromagnetic waves. That is, we are going to study about the wave nature, right? Okay, so under wave nature, we are going to study about electromagnetic waves. So as the name suggests, what is electromagnetic waves? As you can see, two parts, electro and magnetic, right? Yes, so the radiations which are associated by electric and magnetic field are called as your electromagnetic waves. So James Maxwell suggested that when electrically charged particle moved under acceleration, alternating electric and magnetic fields are produced. Yes, so while discussing about Rutherford's atomic model, we discussed about the fact that when electrons are moving in circular orbits, yes, that they are accelerating, right? So when charged particles are accelerating, they emit radiations. Yes, so these radiations which are emitted is in the form of electric and magnetic fields, right? So in there also we discussed, right? Because the electrons, if it is continuously emitting radiations, it is actually supposed to fall inside the nucleus, but it is not happening, right? In that case also we discussed about Maxwell's theory. So as you can see, he suggested that when electrically charged particle, when a charged particle is accelerating, they will emit electromagnetic radiations. Now, the properties of it is electric and magnetic fields oscillate perpendicular to each other and perpendicular the propagation of radiation. So as you can see in the diagram here, if this is the direction of propagation of your wave, as you can see, the electric field is represented with the red color. Yes, this will be your electric field. and perpendicular to that will be your magnetic field, and perpendicular to that will be your direction of propagation of the wave. So what you have to understand, the electrical field, magnetic field and the direction of your propagation of wave will be perpendicular to each other. All three will be perpendicular to each other. Clear? Yes. Now, it does not require any medium for propagation and can move in vacuum. Yes, so your electromagnetic radiations, yes, or your electromagnetic waves do not require any medium for propagation. So you have heard about sound waves, right? It requires a medium to propagate. But unlike your sound waves, this electromagnetic waves do not require any medium to propagate. They can propagate in vacuum as well. Yes, so I hope this is clear. Now we are going to understand the characteristics of your wave. So we know that the radiations which are emitted by your accelerating charged particle are in the form of electromagnetic waves. Now we are going to study about the characteristics of these waves to understand it in a better way, right? So first one is wavelength. So what is wavelength? It is the distance between any two consecutive crests or trough. So what is crest and trough? So as you can see in the diagram, yes, this portion is called as the trough. On the top part, what you can see, that is the crust, and this part which is present below the line is called as the trough. Okay, so what is wavelength? It is the distance between any two consecutive crust or trough. Yes, so you can see this is one of your crust and this is another crust. So the distance between these two consecutive crusts is called as your wavelength, or it can be the distance between two consecutive trough as well, right? So that is wavelength, which is represented by the symbol lambda, and its SI unit is meter. So wavelength is basically the length between, or the distance, right? It's the distance between the two consecutive crust or trough. So it will be in the units meter. Yes. So the next one is frequency. So what is frequency? It is the number of waves passing through a point in 1 second. So if we are considering a point in here, okay, any point we can consider, how many waves will pass through that particular point in 1 second is called as your frequency. Clear? So this is expressed by the symbol nu and in the units called as hertz, right? Expressed by the symbol nu. Okay, the unit for it is hertz. Clear? Now the next one is velocity. You are already familiar with velocity. What is velocity? It is distance by time, right? So in this case, it's the distance traveled by the wave in 1 second. Yes, so the unit for it will be meter per second, right? So in the case where your electromagnetic waves are traveling in vacuum, right, you can express your velocity as c. Okay, instead of v, you can express it as c. And what you have to understand is the value of the velocity of your electromagnetic waves in case of vacuum will be 3 into 10 to the power 8 meter per second. So all electromagnetic radiations shows this value when they are propagating in vacuum. Clear? So that is about velocity. Now comes amplitude. So it is the height of the crust or depth of the trough, and which is represented by the symbol A. So as you can see here, it is the height of the crust or depth of the trough. So from here till here, yes, this is the height of your crust, right? So this is your amplitude, or it can also be the distance from here to here. That is the depth of your trough. Even that can be your amplitude, which is represented by the symbol A. Okay. Now next one is wave number. It is defined as the number of waves per unit length, and it is equal to the reciprocal of wavelength. Yes, so what is wave number? It is the reciprocal of wavelength, which represents the number of waves per unit length. In a unit length, how many waves are present? So that is your wave number. So it is represented by the symbol nu and a bar. Yes, nu is for frequency, right? Nu bar is the symbol for your wave number, and that is equal to 1 by lambda, right? It is the reciprocal of your wavelength. Yes. Now the Last point you have to remember, which is very important, is the relation between your velocity, frequency and wavelength. So how it is related? V equals, that is velocity equals your frequency multiplied by your wavelength. Yes, this is a very important equation which is important for your numerical. So V represents your velocity, nu is your frequency and lambda is your wavelength. Right. So from the equation, what can you say about the relation between your frequency and your wavelength? Yes, frequency will be inversely proportional to your wavelength. Right. So what you have to remember, when frequency increases, your wavelength will decrease. Right. It is inversely proportional. Clear? So you have to remember this equation. Yes, so it can also be represented as C equals nu lambda. Yes, in terms of speed of light also you can represent. Yes, I hope this is clear. Now moving on to electromagnetic spectrum. So till here we studied about the electromagnetic radiations and its characteristics, right? Now, if we arrange these electromagnetic radiations, it's not just one electromagnetic radiations, right? It will be different kinds of electromagnetic radiations. If we are arranging it in the increasing order of their wavelength, that means it will be, as I said, it is inversely proportional, right? If it is arranged in the increasing order of their wavelength, it will be in the decreasing order of your frequency, right? So, let's take a look at our electromagnetic spectrum. It is gamma ray. First comes gamma ray. This is arranged in the increasing order of your wavelength and decreasing order of your frequency. Okay. So gamma rays, then comes X-ray, UV rays, and then comes your visible area. Right? Yes. And then infrared ray, microwave and radio wave. Okay. Gamma ray, X-ray, UV ray, then comes the visible part, right? Then infrared, microwave and radio wave. Yes, so as you can see here, it is in the decreasing order of frequency, right? See here, what did we study about frequency? Number of waves passing through a point, right? See, as you can see, they are very close to each other in here. So, the frequency is more in the beginning, and as we move to the right, the frequency is decreasing. Yes, and what about wavelength? If frequency is decreasing means your wavelength is increasing, right? So, from here to here, your wavelength increases. Yes, so your radio waves will be having the highest wavelength and the least frequency. So, till here we discussed about the wave nature of our electromagnetic radiations. Now, we are going to study about the particle nature of it, under which we are going to study Planck's quantum theory. So, he was able to explain the particle nature. Yes, so using these particle nature, he was able to explain the two phenomena that we will be studying in the upcoming slides, that is photoelectric effect and black body radiation. Okay, so those effects were not being able to explain by the wave nature. Clear? So, now moving on to particle nature. Yes, so Planck suggested that atoms could emit or absorb radiation only in discrete quantities and not in continuous manner. Yes, so we understood till now that your atoms will emit radiations in the form of electromagnetic radiations, right? But what Planck suggested that atoms do not emit these radiations continuously. They emit radiations only in discrete quantities. So, what is this discrete quantities? So, let's take an example of stairs. Okay. Yes. If you have to go from your ground floor to first floor, you have to climb the stairs, right? So, basically you can be here, or you can be here, or you can be here, right? You can't be in between this. Like from one step, you have to step on to the next step or next level, right? It's not like you can hang in there, in between this, right? So, this is one area that you can be there, and this is one area or this, right? So, in this case, yes, either in this step or in the next step you can be. But in the case of ramp, yes, what happens? Directly you can go in here. There are no levels in that case, right? Yes. So, in the same way, discrete quantities means only certain amount of quantities it will be able to emit, not continuously, right? So, he gave the name quantum, or you can also name it as photon or quanta, to the smallest quantity of energy that can be emitted or absorbed in the form of electromagnetic radiation. Yes, so he told that this only atoms will be able to emit radiations in the form of discrete quantities. So this discrete quantities is called as quanta or photon. Clear? Yes. Now this energy related to a photon is given as, this is the equation for the energy related to your discrete quantity, that is photon. Okay. So the equation is E is equal to H into nu. Nu is your frequency, right? So what is the relation that we studied between velocity, frequency and wavelength? Yes, C is equal to nu lambda, right? So what will be your nu? Nu will be equal to C by lambda. So can I substitute it in here? It will be H into C by lambda. So this will be the equation for your energy of photon or quanta, right? Now where E is the energy, what is H? H is a new quantity there. What is H? H is Planck's constant, which is having a value of 6.626 into 10 to the power minus 34 joule second. And nu is the frequency and lambda, you know that it is the wavelength, right? Yes. So it was found that your energy is directly proportional to your frequency. Energy increases as the frequency increases. So instead to remove this proportionality, a constant was introduced, right? That is how you get this equation, and that constant is called as your Planck's constant, right? Yes. Now a body emits or absorbs energy radiation only in integral multiples of quanta. Yes, only in integral multiples. That means E is equal to NH nu. The value of the N will be integral values. It can be 1, it can be 2. Yes, atom can emit radiation in 1 quanta, 2 quanta, 3 quantas. No other quantities are possible. Only integer values. That is what is written here. Only in integral multiple of quanta. E is equal to, yes, E is equal to NH nu. Yes, where your N will be integral values, integers. Clear? Yeah. So this is about the Planck's quantum theory. So he was able to explain that yes, atoms will emit radiations only in discrete quantities and not in continuous manner. And these discrete quantities were called as your quanta or photons. And we studied about the energy which is associated with it. E is equal to H nu, right? Which can also be represented as Hc by lambda, where H is your Planck's constant. And yes, energy will be emitted only in integral multiples of your quanta. That is why one N is also introduced here. So I hope it is clear. So using this Planck's quantum theory, yes, Planck was able to explain the phenomena that we are going to study here. So let's begin with the first one, that is black body radiation. Yes, so before understanding what is black body radiations, let us understand what is a black body, right? So basically, it is an ideal body which can emit or absorb radiations of all frequencies, right? So let us see. Black body is an ideal body which absorbs and emits radiations of all frequencies. Yes, it can emit and it can absorb radiations of any frequencies. And the radiations which are emitted by such a black body is called as your black body radiation. So what you have to understand is, it is written there, it is an ideal body. Yes, so generally it is not possible that any body can absorb and emit all sorts of radiations, right? So to understand this, you have seen when we heat iron or increase the temperature and we heat iron, what happens? The color changes to red first and then it changes to white and then it changes to blue. So why this color change is happening? It is because when we heat iron, it is emitting radiations, right? So that is about emitting radiations. So now imagine we are trying to make the electromagnetic radiations fall on some metal surface. So what happens? Some of it will get absorbed, some of it will be emitted, right? So this is about any body which emits and absorbs radiation. But in the case of ideal body, whichever radiations falls on it, it will get absorbed. Everything will be absorbed and everything will be emitted. Hence, it is an ideal body. So, yes, so the observations made on this black body radiations were, the black body spectrum only depends on temperature and not on the material of the object. Yes, as you can see that it can absorb and emit any frequencies, right? So, what exactly it depends upon then? It depends upon the temperature. So, what happens when the temperature increases? Yes, the electromagnetic radiations will be emitted more. Okay, yes, as temperature increases, the peak wavelength of the spectrum becomes shorter, and as the temperature of the object increases, it emits more radiations. That is what I mentioned now. As temperature of the object increases, the radiations will also be emitted more. Now, what about this one? As temperature increases, the peak wavelength of the spectrum becomes shorter. So, let's understand this from the diagram. Yes, so in here, the x-axis it is wavelength and your y-axis is the intensity of your radiation. So, as you can see here, as the wavelength increases, the intensity keeps on increasing and it reaches a peak value. Yes, and then it starts decreasing. Okay, so this is the trend that you can see here. Yes, as we increase the wavelength, the intensity also increases. It reaches a particular point, that is the peak of this graph, and then it starts reducing. Okay, so you can see here for the temperature 5000 Kelvin, yes, the peak that you can observe is here. Yes, for the temperature 4000 Kelvin, the peak you are observing is in here. And for 3000 Kelvin, the peak you are observing in here. Yes, so you can see that, yes, what? The peak is getting shorter and shorter, right? Yes, so that is what is written here. As the temperature increases, the peak wavelength of the spectrum becomes shorter and shorter. You can see here, the peak was here for 5000 Kelvin. As it goes, it becomes smaller and smaller. It became shorter and shorter. Clear? Yes? Yeah. This is about black body radiation. Now, the next effect we are going to study is photoelectric effect. Okay? Yes. Now, it was discovered by Hertz in the year 1887. So, photoelectric effect was accidentally discovered by Hertz in the year 1887. So, let us understand what it is. When a beam of light of certain frequency falls on a metal surface, electrons are emitted or ejected from the metal surface. This phenomenon is called as photoelectric effect. So, when a beam of light of a certain frequency, what is the importance of this certain frequency? I'll tell you. Yes, so when a beam of light of a particular frequency falls on a metal surface, what happens is immediately the metal will start ejecting electrons. Yes, so that phenomenon is called as photoelectric effect, and these ejected electrons are called as photoelectrons. So, what did you understand from this? When light is made to fall on a metal surface, the metal surface immediately starts ejecting electrons, which is called as photoelectrons. Okay, so this phenomenon is called as photoelectric effect. For each metal, there is a characteristic minimum frequency which is called as nu naught. Yes, that is threshold frequency, below which the photoelectric effect is not observed. So, as you can see here, a beam of light of certain frequency. So, this particular frequency is different for different metal. So, each metal will have a minimum required frequency which is called as threshold frequency. Yes, that is the minimum frequency. So, if the radiation is coming or if the light is coming below that frequency, yes, the photoelectric effect will not happen. So, that minimum frequency is called as threshold frequency, which is different for different metal. So, below which the photoelectric effect will not take place. Electrons are ejected from the metal surface as soon as the beam of light strikes. Okay, so there is no lag in there. As soon as the light touches your metal surface, immediately it will start ejecting your electrons. Yes, and the number of electrons ejected is directly proportional to the intensity of the light. Yes, so the light which is incident on the metal surface. Yes, if the intensity of the light is more, yes, more number of electrons will be ejected. Clear? And the kinetic energy of the ejected electrons is proportional to the frequency. Now, about kinetic energy. Yes, this is the minimum frequency that is required for the electrons to get ejected from the metal surface. That is your threshold frequency. So, if a light comes onto the metal surface which is having a frequency which is higher than your threshold frequency, what happens? Yes, the extra energy will be given to the electrons as kinetic energy. Clear? If it is below than threshold frequency, this effect would not take place. If it is more than the threshold frequency, the extra energy will be given to your electrons as kinetic energy. Now, the kinetic energy of the ejected electrons depends upon the frequency. If the frequency is more, the electrons will have more kinetic energy. Yes, so these two are very important. Yes, so number of electrons, it depends upon the intensity of your incident light, and the kinetic energy of the electrons which are ejected depends upon the frequency. Yes, so this is what were the observations made from the photoelectric effect. So as you can see from the diagram, there is a metal surface here. Yes, okay, and a light is made to fall on this metal surface. So as soon as it falls, the metal will start ejecting your electrons. Yes, which are detected by the detector in here. Okay, you can use this diagram also. Yes, this is the incident light. As soon as it touches the metal surface, it starts ejecting electrons. Now, the properties or the observations that were made is what we discussed now. Clear? Yes. Now, Einstein gave an explanation for photoelectric effect using Planck's quantum theory. As I said, in the case of black body radiation and photoelectric effect, it was not being able to explain by the wave nature. This was explained by Planck using his Planck's quantum theory, right? Now, photoelectrons, what is photoelectrons? The electrons that are being ejected from the metal surface, right? So, photoelectrons are ejected only when the incident light has certain minimum threshold frequency. Yes, we discussed it, that is nu 0. If the frequency of the incident light is more than threshold frequency, the excess energy is imparted to the electron as kinetic energy, right? We discussed it in the last slide. Yes, the extra energy is given to the electrons, the ejected electrons, in the form of kinetic energy. Yes, so the energy associated, that is the kinetic energy, is given by the equation half mv square. We know that kinetic energy is equal to half mv square, which is equal to h nu minus h nu 0. So this is the equation for your kinetic energy of the photoelectrons, right? H nu, what is nu? Nu is the frequency of the incident light and nu 0 is the threshold frequency, right? And h is your Planck's constant, which is having a value 6.626 into 10 to the power minus 34 joule second, right? So I can also write it as h into nu minus nu naught. Yes, I took the h outside. I can write it also in this form, right? So this is the equation for your kinetic energy. On increasing the intensity of light, more electrons are ejected, but the energies are not altered. Okay, so in here we discussed, right, the number of electrons ejected is proportional to your intensity. So when you increase the intensity, number of electrons ejected will be more, but there won't be any change in the energy. Energy remains the same. Clear? Now, there is one more term that you have to remember, which is work function. What is work function? The minimum energy required to eject electrons from the metal surface is called as work function, and it is equal to h nu. So, how you can represent your work function is W naught, which is equal to h nu naught. Okay. So, this is work function, that is the minimum energy required to eject electrons from the metal surface. Clear? Yes. So, this is about your photoelectric effect and its explanation. Yes. So, what you have to remember in this is the number of electrons depends upon the intensity and the kinetic energy depends on your frequency. So, I hope what and all we have discussed in this class is clear for you. Yes, in the next session, we will be discussing on atomic spectra. Yes, in today's class, we dealt with the first development which led to the Bohr model of atom, right, which was dual nature of electromagnetic radiation. Yes, we discussed about wave nature as well as particle nature, right? So, in next class, we will be discussing about the second development which led to the Bohr model of atom, that is atomic spectra. Then we will be discussing on line spectrum of hydrogen and the Bohr model of atom. Yes, finally, we will be studying about Bohr model of atom. So, that's all for today. Thank you.